Welcome to the eCommerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top founders and experts in the e-commerce industry and take an in-depth look at the struggles and successes in growing e-commerce brands profitably.
All right, Josh Chin here. I'm the host of the eCommerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top experts in the e-com industry, and we go behind the scenes of the struggles and successes in growing a brand. Now, this episode is brought to you by Chronos Agency. If you run a direct-to-consumer e-com brand that is ready to scale and to double your customer lifetime value through lifecycle and retention marketing, Chronos is your company. Now, we've helped hundreds of brands scale profits with email, SMS, and mobile push marketing while getting an average of 3,500% ROI from our efforts. We've worked with brands like Truly Beauty, The Udi, Alya Skin, and many more. Now, the next step is to email us at sales@chronos.agency, or you can go to chronos.agency to learn more. Today's guest is Kathleen Booth. She's the Chief Marketing Officer at Clean.io, a digital engagement security platform that helps businesses protect their user experience, revenue, and brands. She's also one of the 50 top B2B marketing influencers of 2019, as named by Top Rank. She's also a host of a long-running inbound success podcast. Before being a part of Clean.io, Kathleen is also an agency owner and operator for 11 years. I personally think that's incredible. Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Joshua. That was such a lovely introduction. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And tell us a little bit more about your background. And we've been talking a little bit before we click on hit on record. You were traveling the world, advising countries and the different organizations. What do you do before marketing?
So I have a very non-traditional career path for a marketer. I did do an MBA in marketing, but I also did a master's in international politics. And so I sort of had these two directions I could go in my career. And I spent the first 10 years out of school working in the field of public-private partnerships, specifically water utility privatization. And so I spent a decade working with organizations like the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank on how to introduce private management for public water systems. And that actually led me back into marketing because halfway through that time, I realized that a lot of these big projects, which were very needed because I tended to work in places where nobody had good water, a lot of these projects were getting derailed because of very poor communication on the part of the government. And so people wouldn't understand the intent. You know, a lot of organizations would oppose the involvement of private companies, and the projects would fall apart. And as a result, nothing would happen and the water systems wouldn't get fixed. And so about halfway through my career, I actually used what I learned in my MBA in marketing and started working and training governments and multilateral development banks on how to do what at the time we were calling stakeholder consensus building. But it was really just sort of like a specialized form of marketing or strategic communications. And so then when I got married and decided to have kids and couldn't travel the world anymore, I came back to my marketing roots and started an agency. And that was a great kind of transition back into it.
And you've done it for 11 years.
I did it for 11 years. And then I sold the business in 2017 to a friendly competitor. Yeah, and worked there for a couple of years and then kind of left and pursued what I had always wanted to do, which was going in-house as head of marketing for early stage VC-backed technology companies. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. But I've spent my career marketing to marketers. And so I love speaking to e-commerce marketers and e-commerce business owners. And I'm really excited to be here.
That's awesome. And tell us a little bit more about Clean.io. We talk a little bit about coupon extensions and how what it's all about and how it may not be as good as most people think, like for merchants.
Yeah. So Clean.io we call it a digital engagement security platform. And really what that means is the world, as we all know, you know, your listeners are in e-commerce, the world has shifted to a very digital first model, especially in the last year with COVID. I think that's sped it all up so much. And what used to be interactions with customers and buyers in stores or in offices has been, replaced with interactions with customers on our websites. And as marketers, we were always taught that we own our website, right? Like we don't own our Facebook page or our Twitter account. They can change the rules of the game, but we've always been told we own our website. Mm-hmm. And my mind was kind of blown when I came to this company because I realized it's really not true. We do own a lot of what happens on that website, but because of the nature of the way websites are built, because of the way the modern internet functions, there's a lot of third-party code that operates on our sites that we don't have control over. And some of that code we allow in the form of the CMS we might choose to build our website on, or the plugins we put on it, or the scripts, things like Google Analytics that we add. But some of it we don't allow in. And that's really where we come in. And we have two products. One has to do with controlling the risks inherent in the code that is introduced through programmatic advertising. And that's our product, Clean Ad. And then the other is the one that is really more relating to e-commerce called Clean Cart, which has to do with the risks associated with third-party browser extensions. And so this is actually really interesting. I never knew this, and I used to work as a marketer in cybersecurity, but when you are a user and you put a browser extension like in your Chrome browser or Safari or whatever browser you're using, because that's added by the user, it has an elevated level of permission to run script on the websites that you as a user visit. And so the example you mentioned of coupon extensions, as an e-commerce business, you build your website. Again, you think you own it and you can control the user experience. But what happens is if a user comes to your site and they happen to have a coupon extension, the two most common being Honey and Capital One Shopping, those extensions, because they live in the user's browser, have the permission essentially to execute code on your website. And they do it by auto injecting coupon codes at checkout. So they are putting code into your checkout experience and testing to see which coupon code will have the biggest discount in order to save the user money. So that's where we come in, as we help e-commerce brands control that by preventing the auto injection, not stopping people from entering coupon codes, but stopping what I like to say are robots putting coupon codes into your website.
You talked a little bit about the data and insights that you've gathered over years at Clean. Like on the surface, it sounds like a good thing. I mean, if they're going to use Honey or Capital One Shopping, and if that means converting better and making a purchase that otherwise wouldn't be a purchase, yeah, sure, use away, man. Coupon codes, sure. But that doesn't seem to be the case from what I've heard from you.
Yeah, this is so interesting to me because this product came out of private beta in March, so it's relatively new. But we have a couple of years of experience dealing with third-party code through our ad tech product. And when we first released this, and when I had learned really how coupon extensions work, I was kind of shocked that more retailers weren't worried about it. There seems to be this assumption in the e-commerce world that coupon extensions are good for business. And I think that that's partly because there's a lack of education around how they work. And then also really what impact they have on the most important metrics for e-commerce businesses. And so that's what I'm excited to talk about. I mean, how they work, as buyers, most of us who've used them know, and I used to use them, you know that you get the extension. And when you visit an e-commerce site, you put a bunch of things in a cart. And when you get to checkout, the widget pops up and says, we found 10 codes. Do you want me to try those codes and see if I can save you money? I'm paraphrasing. You hit yes, and then it starts to pop those codes in and test to see what will happen. And it seems great, right? As a buyer, like, why would I not want to save money?
Yeah.
But where the trouble starts, and there are many issues with this, the first of which is that the way that these extensions get the codes in the first place is a little bit problematic. And, what happens is if I have Honey, for example, and I'm one of your best customers at your e-commerce store, and you decide you're going to do a promotion for your VIP customers, maybe it's a flash sale, and you send me a special code. I go to your website. I legitimately have that code from you. I type it into the promo code field at checkout. because I have Honey in my browser, it is able to scrape that code then and give it to everybody who uses it. And so, yeah. So it's a big deal. And as a result, what winds up happening is, and we've seen this with our customers who've come to us, the kinds of codes that then wind up getting distributed are things like I said, VIP codes, or that 10% off that you're offering to people who subscribe to your newsletter. Now, anybody, whether they subscribe to your newsletter or not, can use it. That code that you're using to track whether your podcast advertising is working. Now, anybody can use it. So your attribution is all screwed up. That code that you've given to your affiliate marketers who are going out and promoting your product gets shared with everyone. And then all of a sudden, not only do you not know if your affiliate is really driving sales, you might be overpaying them if they're getting compensated on a percentage of the sales they drive. Or then there's also where I call these sort of unethical code usage. We've seen, because we track the codes that are attempted, we've seen codes like Military Hero 30, clearly intended for a veteran, and I always like to tell the story. I would never physically walk into a restaurant and lie and say, hey, I served in the Army. Can I have 30% off my meal? But we do it digitally all the time when we use these codes that weren't intended for us. And in the worst cases, we've seen, like in one case, we saw an 80% employee discount code leak. And then in another case, even worse, in another case, my CEO found a men's apparel brand where they had a $75 off coupon code, but they didn't set a minimum order value. And so people were able to get unlimited merchandise for free as long as they kept their order value at $75 or under. So it's very frightening when you think about the implications of these codes getting out there. And really the real problem is that when merchants discover their codes have leaked and then they want to clamp down on that, they go to these coupon extensions and plea and request to have their codes removed. And 9 times out of 10, the response is join our affiliate program and you'll have more granular control over that. And so I think merchants tend to feel a little bit as though they're being blackmailed or extorted, because you join the affiliate program and then you have to pay that coupon extension company every time somebody uses a code. And you're doing that in order to have them not share your codes. So that's sort of the tip of the iceberg. There are other things going on with attribution. We've been doing a lot of A/B testing about what happens when you block these extensions. And I can certainly go into all of that, but I'll stop and see if you have any questions.
That's really interesting. The first thing that pops up in my mind is, I'm not sure if this is going to be a difficult question to answer, but dynamic codes, dynamic coupon codes. That is, I'm wearing the shirt. Klaviyo is the tool that we use a lot at Chronos. And we rely pretty heavily on dynamic codes. And that means that every single recipient and subscriber would have a unique code that is made just for them. It's one-time use only, and it would expire the moment it's used. That seems like it solves the issue, or at least part of it. What do you think about that in terms of is it part of the solution?
Yeah, I think that can be a great solution to part of the problem. And what I mean by that is really 2 things. One, I do think there are smaller merchants for whom, a tool like a Klaviyo, it might be out of their reach. And so because there are a lot of, especially enterprise grade e-commerce solutions that do solve for this, but something like 90% of e-commerce merchants are very, very small and maybe don't have it in their budget to use those tools. And so it's really hard for them. They're the ones that are going to suffer the most. But the other issue is that the dynamic codes work really well if you're using them in email marketing. If you want to do something like a podcast ad or you're working with an affiliate, it doesn't really solve that problem because you really need one code that they can share broadly. And you're doing that for attribution purposes. And so that's where it gets scary. Like, what is the right solution there? And the real problem too is that, let's just use affiliate marketing as an example. If you work with an affiliate, a lot of these people, especially if your affiliate happens to also be an influencer or a customer ambassador, for example, these are people that are busy. that have a lot of demands on their time. If it's a customer ambassador, they may not even be getting compensated. They might be doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
Yeah.
When the code leaks, and we had a customer go through this, they explained it to me and I really felt for them. If your code leaks to a coupon extension, what winds up happening is you then have to shut that code down. You have to issue a new one. And then you're being put in the position of going back to your affiliates or your influencers or your customer ambassadors and saying, hey, here's a new code. I'm so sorry your code leaked. Can you replace it on your website and your Instagram and all those places where you're promoting it? It introduces a level of friction in your relationships with your ambassadors, influencers, and advocates that I think is problematic and can also affect the activation that you get out of them. And so it's a complex issue and not easy to solve.
That's a great answer. And I think that applies to, not just the small merchants, but the bulk of our merchants who are our clients are at the typically approaching the 10 mil range. So quite fast growing businesses. And often when influencers come into play, and affiliate marketing, it's often a difficult thing to track attribution wise. Yeah. And having coupon extension, browser extensions definitely doesn't help with the problem. I'm curious about, from a user's point of view, if I were a Honey user or a Capital One shopping user, how would it change my experience shopping with a brand? Would it be like, oh, you're not allowed to use Honey on this site? Or, that would destroy my experience.
Right.
On the site.
And user experience, I know I don't have to tell you this. User experience is so critical in e-commerce. And we're very aware of that. And so the way we built our tool is that it really doesn't impact the user experience. And what I mean by that is that a lot of these extensions have a built-in status where if there isn't a code that works, or if somebody already has a code, for example, that is lower than any code they test, there's a result that will pop up in the widget that says you already have the best deal. Yeah. And so the way we built our tool is it blocks these extensions from auto injecting. It actually looks like they're still trying to from the user standpoint. And then the user just gets a message that says you already have the best deal.
Okay. That's perfect. That's beautiful. What about the, talking about adding code to the site? How heavy is the code like? Does it add to the issue, load speed and all?
No impact on site latency at all.
Interesting.
It's a very light, code. It really doesn't impact speed. And that was really important to us because we know that site speed is crucial. It affects store performance. It affects SEO rankings, etc. Yeah.
You know what I really like about this, Kathleen? It's it's margins. It's really profit margins. When we think about just cash flow for operating and scaling an e-com brand, having margins that are profitable is incredibly helpful. And any additional savings that come with coupon code issues definitely helps. And that's a big conversation that we're having internally with our clients as well, when it comes down to like how much discounts are you actually giving and how much of that is affecting your margins. So I think that really does is a big benefit to using Clean.
Yeah, and you raised a good question in the beginning, which is around data. And so, one of the big concerns that people come to us with is, what's going to happen to my conversion rates if I do this? And so we have done a lot of A/B testing, and we have a lot of data from the customers we're working with. And what we found is so fascinating. So when you think about coupon extensions, in most cases, they're very different than traditional coupons. So traditional coupons, like paper coupons that used to be mailed to you, those were used to drive top of funnel demand. So, in the US, the greatest example is always the Bed Bath & Beyond coupon that everyone used to get in the mail. And I always describe it like, I'm sitting in my house, this coupon comes. I didn't necessarily think I needed new towels for my bathroom, but all of a sudden I get this coupon saying 20% off on one item. And I'm like, I I should just go and see if there's something in the store that maybe I need, right? Like I was not planning on going. That's how coupons used to be used. But as coupons have become digital, they've really moved to be much more of a bottom of the funnel tool. Certainly when we're talking about extensions, you're very involved in email marketing and you can still use coupons for top of funnel demand in that way. But when somebody's using an extension and they come to your site, 9 times out of 10, they didn't come to your site because of the extension. They were there already. So they had a purchase intent. And what we've learned through our testing is that the presence of a coupon extension, we now know how it impacts conversion at a couple different levels. So there's 2 different types of conversions. There's the number of sessions that come in that result in a purchase. That would be actual, customer conversion. And then there's the number of people who land in checkout and then complete their order. And that would be sort of cart abandonment / cart completion, depending upon which direction you want to look at it from. Coupon extensions. What we found is that if somebody comes to your site and they have an extension, they are, let's say, 5% more likely to make a purchase. Okay. That's at the very beginning, sessions to completed orders.
Right.
However, where this gets interesting, so the psychology behind that would seem to implicate that if I land on your site and I'm using a coupon extension, the prospect that I might be able to save money makes me more likely to shop and add things to my cart. Now, if we look at the other metric, which is the number of people who actually get to the checkout page and have things in their cart and then complete their order, there is statistically almost no difference in conversion with people who are using the coupon extension and people who are either using it and we block the coupons or who don't have a coupon extension. So what that tells me is that once they're in checkout, they're committed, right? Like they've mentally made the decision to purchase. And the coupon at that stage is a nice to have. It's an extra bonus. It's the icing on the cake, and so blocking the coupon extension from auto injecting actually does not affect cart abandonment at any statistical level. There's sort of like a 1%. We've seen some cases where your conversion rate is 1% worse, and we've seen some where it's 1% better. And it seems to vary within that band based on retailer. What it does do, however, if you block coupon extensions, is it increases your average order value on average by 10%. So if I break all this down, somebody comes in with a coupon extension and they're 5% more likely to make a purchase, but they don't necessarily need to actually get a discount to incent them to complete the purchase. And if you block the discount at checkout, you are able to get 10% more in profit margins.
That's huge.
Right?
Yeah.
And everybody assumes that extensions are good for their business. And here's what's really, really drives me nuts is a lot of the retailers I talk to, again, they assume coupon extensions are good. And in some respects they are. There's that 5% bump in the beginning. But where it gets dicey is they partner with them and they become affiliates with them and they pay them for the sales they're getting, when what we've proven with our data is that in a lot of cases, they don't actually affect purchase behavior at checkout. So you're taking a 10% hit based on the savings from the coupon, but then you're also paying the coupon extension and affiliate fee.
And that just don't make sense. Now, have you seen this consistently across the board with the case studies that you've seen, or does it vary? Are there certain cases where it makes sense to?
I would say we've so far the A/B testing we've done has been on a relatively small sample population, but the results have been consistent across that small sample. So I'm sure we will run into cases where coupon extensions do make sense. And that's something that we work with all of our customers on. That's something that we test during the trial period. And because we as a company are not coming out and saying coupons are bad or even coupon extensions are bad. What we are trying to help retailers do is get more granular control over what happens on their site. And so coupon extensions are good for you. Great. Use them. But if you're seeing some of the data that we're seeing and you feel like they're not good for you, we believe you should be able to control them on your own website.
Mm, I I see that, and you're saying that there's a period, a trial period that uh, that people can go through to see whether it makes sense, like from conversion standpoint and margin standpoint.
Yeah,
How was that?
we do a 14-day free trial. And in that time period, we test what the impact is on conversion rates and AOV and all of those metrics that I just mentioned.
It's very cool. It's very cool. Is there a certain type of ecom brand or a certain size of ecom brand that this would work incredibly well for?
Yeah. So right now our app is really only available at the moment for Shopify Plus users, but we are
Mm,
rapidly moving in the direction of expanding that to, regular Shopify and also other e-commerce platforms. Um, so there's that factor. But then I would say, I think it really only is applicable for a company that's using coupon or discount codes as part of the marketing mix. If you don't use codes, you're not going to have this problem.
mm,
And then there are certainly some industries based on the data we've seen where the problem is much more acute. And I think apparel, we've seen it really, really bad.
mm,
Beauty, home decor.
mm-hmm,
But we have, customers in all kinds of different verticals. We have some CPG customers.
mm-hmm.
Like on our site, one of the customers that I think is listed is Super Coffee, for
Super
example.
coffee, yeah,
Yeah, they're a client of
very cool
ours.
brand.
And Made in Cookware is another one. And they all come to us for different reasons. Some of them don't have a lot of coupon codes they use, but they're luxury brands and they don't want to be associated with discounting. And so they feel it hurts their brand equity when somebody comes to their site and an extension pops up and says, we have 10 codes for you. It's sort of, they feel as though it cheapens the brand. And so they're interested in blocking that for different reasons, maybe than somebody who does have a lot of codes and is actively using discounting. And so it's a really interesting kind of conversation that we get into with retailers.
That makes sense. Now, let's take a slight shift in the conversation. So Clean.io is, you guys are a relatively new company and you guys are doing something really incredible. I haven't seen any other company doing what you guys are doing. But what's the future of Clean.io if we were to have this conversation again, like 2 years from now, what would Clean look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it all comes back to that concept of digital engagement security.
Mm-hmm.
And at our heart, what we are really dedicated to is giving brands the ability to control what happens on their own websites. And so in e-commerce, we're already looking at other aspects. For example, even just with coupon codes, we're seeing that how they claim attribution is questionable. And so we're looking at, can we give brands better control over how different cookies affect attribution reporting and perhaps help them improve the accuracy of that. There are a lot of different directions we could go, but it's all about controlling the user experience and your brand on your own website.
So it sounds like you're basically reinforcing the idea of owned marketing and owned channels, which I can jam with. I like that. I used to think that email has always been and will always be an own channel, and then iOS 15 came out, and now we realize that okay, we're not as invincible as we thought we were. So Kathleen, what are some or what's one question that you wish more people would ask you personally about that you just don't get a lot in these podcast interviews?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh my goodness. I think you've asked a lot of them. I think the question that the challenge we face is that there's a lot of assumptions out there.
Yeah.
And I would love for people to ask us, but also more broadly, just themselves, like, what does the data really show about how, in this case, something like a coupon extension affects my business? Let's stop relying on assumptions and let's really look at the data that's specific to our own businesses, because as you know, it's different for every e-commerce business. It's different by industry based on what customer you're targeting. But I'm a marketer. I spent my whole career in marketing, and I wish more marketers would really walk the walk and look more closely at their own data and think critically and question the assumptions that they've made, because it hurts us if we don't do that. It hurts our results, and it can cause us to make investments in marketing that are money losers. And again, as somebody who's a marketer, I don't want to waste a single dollar of my budget. And so knowing what's really driving results is so, so important to me. And I just wish we would all challenge ourselves to dig a little deeper on that.
I agree. And that's definitely a good reminder for me as well. Kathleen, for people listening who are on Shopify Plus and they're interested to check out clean.io, what's the best way to get in touch with you or someone on your team?
Well, the beautiful thing is our company name, clean.io, is also our URL. So we're really easy to find. And when you get to our website, just look for Clean Cart, which is this product that we've talked about today. And you can book a demo directly from our site, or you can fill out a form and we'll get back to you. You can also, if you just have questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I am very active there, and I will definitely accept your connection request. And I'm happy to chat and answer any questions you have.
Perfect. Link will all be in the show notes, guys. Kathleen, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Joshua. This was awesome.
Thanks for listening to the eCommerce Profits Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get notified of future episodes.